Hello and welcome to another We Are Developers Live. It's Wednesday again, and we have a few cherry-picked resources for you that we're going to talk about. Dan, how are you doing today?
I'm very well. I'm even better now, Chris, that you surprised me with those props. I don't know. I can't tell if it's just it was there, you thought of the joke, or if it was far more planned than you'd like us to believe. But yeah, I love it. I'm happy. We were just saying before, lots of sun going around Europe, so things are good, but also very hot.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. I try to keep in the middle of the room because all the corners are 90 degrees.
Ah, very nice, very nice.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on my way to the airport after this to fly to Bristol, where we're going to do some recording in a studio tomorrow. So that's why I picked the cherries, because I still have them and I had to get rid of them. And so basically I can't bring them to the airport. I think I will see. I might have to get going with the cherries and see what's going on there. We also have a guest today again, as usual, and there's twofold. She joined. She said she's going to join the show, and she's happy to actually give a presentation later on, which is going to wasn't a presentation. So we said we're going to do a coffee with developers recording right after this, where we're going to chat about what you're on about and what you're doing. So, Elena Toro, what are you doing and who are you?
Hi, well, hello everyone. I'm really happy to be here sharing this with you today. So, yeah, well, I'm a software engineer at PenPot. I've been working here only for months, actually. So I joined pretty recently, but I knew the company for a long time. And yeah, I'm based in Murcia, which is actually a really hot city. We were talking about that before the show. So yeah, but I'm used to it. It's fine. It's like every summer. And yeah, that's it. I've been working for almost 10 years, mostly on product development, I say. So I'm kind of a generalist developer. Actually, before joining PenPot, I was working as a backend engineer. So it's like, I would say, yeah, I'm a generalist, which means that a bit of everything, but not a lot of a single thing. Yeah, that's all.
So you're now in Madrid?
No, I'm in Murcia, it's like 3 hours by car from Madrid. It's really close to Alicante. It's also like really close to the sea. So yeah, it's a nice city.
It's horrible. How do you cope? This is just, this is amazing. Yeah. So the company is though in Madrid, basically, isn't it? But you all work remote?
Yes. Yeah, we work remotely. I usually try to go to the office at least once a month, and we have team catch-ups as well. So we see each other kind of often, I say, but yeah, usually go at least, as I said, once a month to Madrid. I go by train, and I stay there for some days. So actually, the office is so cool. So I really love going to the office. But yeah, the team is working mostly remotely. Yeah.
That was one of the cool things working for large corporations, that basically you always have an office in every city you visit. Like whenever I was at conferences and I had to leave the hotel by noon, I actually went to the office of my companies back then and had a coffee before I went back to the airport. So with coffee, with We Are Developers, we don't have that at all. So basically we're just staying in places and try to find coffee places to work on. But it's great that there's still companies out there that do the not forcing people to come back to the office. So it's an interesting battle we have to do right now.
Yeah, I've been working remotely most of my career. One of the companies I worked for 6 or 7 years ago, it was also based in Madrid. They have an office in New York and another one in Madrid. And in both cities, they had a flat where people can just an apartment or where people can go and stay there. So instead of booking hotels and so on, you can just say, okay, if there's a space in the apartment, I'm gonna go to stay here. So it's like a second home somehow. And it was so easy for people working remotely to just go to the office whenever they want to. So yeah.
It's actually much cheaper than getting hotel rooms for people all the time. It's a very, very clever thing to do.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a look at some resources that we collected and cherry-picked, as I showed, that we're going to talk about today. So bring that one up. Again, we have a few links that didn't make it to the newsletter, but I found it really interesting to see. And the first thing that cracked me up to no end was that GitHub has 1 billion repositories now, and the 1 millionth repository is actually just this one, where basically it has one README file, and the README file has a shit in it, and it's actually even a typo because it's basically markdown without the space under the hash. And yeah, so basically that was really interesting because I can only imagine what's happening in the DevRel and marketing department of GitHub right now. Like we want to advertise that the 1 billionth repository is there and that's it. But the cracking thing about it is that actually all the issues and pull requests that came in, like basically people had like tons and tons of issues that they filed for it and pull requests where they translated it into other languages and said like I do like TypeScript support for it and these kind of things. So it just shows that GitHub is a place where you actually contribute and where people actually have fun doing things together. And it's just like you can't make it up. I mean, Dan, you said it, like basically where like the 1 billionth repo and then it's that. I would love to talk to the guy actually who runs it.
Yeah, like, did he see it coming? You know, that's what I'd like to know, is that like the fact that that lands as the 1 billion, that almost feels like it's too perfect, right? Like he saw it coming. Maybe he's got the kind of there's those counters out there, aren't there, where they keep the kind of live trackers of how many there are. That's just too perfect. I love, Chris, just to sort of jump on that, some of the things in the issues. There's somebody who's just put the devil horns kind of rock emoji as the title of the issue, and then it just says, "I came here to be a part of history. May the force be with you." That's great. That's just so nice. A corner of the internet where we're doing our weird little things. I love it.
He has another repo called Yep. Okay, that basically says NASA and Explore. Nice. No, I don't think it was planned. I mean, the poor guy probably is so famous now without knowing it and without wanting it. But that's the thing. Like, I mean, when you create a repo that's public, that just happens. I mean, Elena, your stuff is all open source. Like, how do you deal with like issues and with pull requests? Like, do you get a lot of spam? Do you get a lot of people that just want to put random things in?
Yeah, sometimes, but at Pempod we have a great team and a community team, like dealing also with a lot of that stuff. So they help a lot on reviewing the kind of things that maybe are like, I don't know, too much, like repeated pull requests or repeated issues or issues that can be connected, or and then they tell us so we can like manage that. So yeah, I guess that it depends, and I think that we should always like try to get away from the noise things, but at the same time somehow like pay attention to contributions and to what people need. So yeah, there's a whole team working on that.
Yeah, I mean, what I found fascinating was that templates don't work. When I was at Microsoft, and we said like, okay, we do issue templates so people can at least it makes it easier for us to go through them and actually triage them much quicker. But nobody actually bothered to actually use them. Seems like that's an idea that doesn't work.
Yeah, that's right. I think that, I mean, they are useful somehow. Some people actually do that, and I'm really happy when someone like follows a pull request template. But I think it's better to have them than not to have them. Even if not everyone follows it, I think because it also like mark some kind of like quality for coming pull requests and so on. So I will look before at a pull request that follows a template than a one that doesn't follow anything.
I mean, we have a lot of resources here that talk about performance, because that's what we're going to talk about later on as well in your case. But I just wanted to get Dan something interesting, because he's our font and color fan. I like that IKEA released web fonts.
Yeah.
And I didn't know
I loved this article.
Yeah. Why?
Because we've been dealing with like on the team that I'm working right now at Pempod, like we have to deal with some decisions regarding fonts and support in different languages. And I mean, it was great that that was written by IKEA, which is like something that I wouldn't have expected, like to put that much effort on doing this. I don't know, like I would have said, okay, so for each different language, just use like a different font or whatever, or try to find something that just fits the needs. But I mean, they've like spent a lot of time looking at the perfect font to have like a same look and feel. They kind of, if I understood it correctly, they kind of did like a fork of the Node.js sans, or it's kind of, I use the word fork, but yeah, I don't really like exactly know what they did, but I assume it's that, and picking just all the things that they need. And they're like, we still have to do like some performance stuff, like just leave some characters, so when we load the Japanese font, we don't have to load all the characters, only the ones that we need. I mean, they are putting a lot of effort on that. It's amazing.
It's easy to underestimate it, isn't it? Like, I mean, in Japanese and Chinese, you got like 3,000 to 5,000 glyphs. And I mean, why would you load them if you just display the page in English? Like, it seems to be a big thing that they had a need for.
Yes, and not only that, it seems that in the they share a link in this page where like you can load like different font files depending on the range of characters that you want to use. So I guess that in some text you don't need like to load the whole language range, only the ones that you may need. I don't really know how they calculate that, but it's something that you can actually do. So yeah, I didn't know that. So
why though? Why have they? That's my question with it. I mean, it's really cool. It is very cool when I'm looking at it. It's like wondering what the motivation is, because it feels like, you know, if this is to impress developers, yeah, maybe it does, but is it going to make us shop at IKEA? You know, it's like, what's the benefit? Because when I'm looking at it, I'm going, is it just like a brand consistency? You know, where I understand it, it's like so many people will go and use you know, a font that looks like a brand font, and they think, yeah, that'll work, it pairs nicely. But for the brand, that's not the font they've chosen. It's a totally different font. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if it's just about that. Are they trying to just improve their like brand appearance and the kind of experience of IKEA products online? Is it just about that? Because if it is, that's really admirable that they've put time and money into it.
Yeah, actually, they mentioned that it's a design team, the team that is behind this. So it's not only about technical stuff. It's not about, let's boost performance because we are so nerd and we love that. No, it's not only about that. It's more like a design decision. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the glyph range is as well. They found that like they had like languages that they supported that wasn't part of Verdana or Futura, so they actually had to, and also not Google's implementation of it. And I mean, there was also the rendering of the eye, which in IKEA comes up a lot. And I mean, if they send it out as a WAV file, then it's also flat packed, so that works.
Oh, Chris.
Oh, dear. So last time we had the links cars and stuff like that, and we talked about the absolutely atrocious websites out there. And there's an interesting article about like if ugly websites sell better, and that basically conversion rates of people that have like terrible designs. And seems like there is a point to it. And I mean, if it's just notoriety, I guess. But like, is it just a thing where you see the website for the first time, holy crap, that's horrible, and then you just basically, okay, you never go back, or you buy really things about it? I remember people that I know, designers that work on like leaflets of supermarkets that they throw into your post box, although you have a sticker on it, no appetizing, and they make them deliberately look terrible because it actually then looks like you're getting a bargain. If they were styling them properly, people would be thinking those supermarkets are expensive. So that might be the same logic here.
I guess there's something. Elena, do you think that you know, are there like cultural differences as well? Because we've drilled into this a few times and sort of said it's all so subjective. Because if you look at a lot of the Japanese web, for example, it almost takes the opposite approach. You know, you might think that you know, minimalism is such a like common sort of design trend in sort of Asian countries, but you'll see on Japanese web it's the opposite. It's like maximalism. It's as much as you can possibly get. And does that tell you something about just how we consume, you know, websites, or what we look for? Do we want to just see everything and then find it ourselves, or You know, it's like, is there a cultural difference, and how do you kind of factor that in when you're building a project like that, like yours?
Yeah, I mean, in kind of or trying to think about culture factors, like I have no idea, because I don't know, it's like I don't have like a lot of design skills, so I don't know. I would have like see how others do that. That's my, I don't know, my way of doing this kind of things. Like, how are others like trying to approach this problem? But it depends. I always try to think also of having. It's true that there are some like designs that apply to everything, and like Chris was mentioning, like if it's too similar to another thing, where like, and you have some preconceptions about that, like I don't know. I know another website that looks like this one, and it's expensive or it's whatever. So then you're going to bring these thoughts onto that side, right? So maybe always trying to put some kind of personal style on it. And I was reading this article before, and one of the things that they mentioned was nostalgia. But I'm like, does it really work? Because like, you know, people grow, but other people come, so they are not going to feel nostalgia anymore. They're like, this is ugly, I'm not going to be here. So I don't know if it's a fact or feeling like, oh, this is how my blog used to look like 10 years ago. So yeah, I don't know.
I think you've hit the nail on the head with something there, though, because before I, moved into this role, I was a teacher, and I started to see, even in the time that I was teaching, where when I first started teaching, I was in my sort of mid-20s, something like that. So my students were maybe 10 years younger than me, and their design sort of preferences, the things that they would do, were pretty similar to mine. By the end of my career, so 10 years later, so by this point, I'm 20 years difference in age, I noticed that the things they wanted to design, to me, or any of my students that might be watching this are going to hate me, but I didn't like any of the design decisions they would make, because they were almost part of that neo-brutalist, like, we're going to do the opposite of everything before us. And the colors they would put together would almost be these clashing, maybe like a bright pink and a bright green, things that you think, oh, that's not going to work. Why are you doing that? But they would stick with it. Whereas my inclination was to go as far away from that as possible. So I think you're onto something. Time moves. And if you're not young, if you're not old enough to remember the nostalgia, it just looks ugly.
Yeah.
Well, that's also the fake nostalgia of things as well. Like, I mean, when I see like the 1980s show, I don't know what shows we had, but lots of them looked like the 80s were beautiful and everything was like neon colors and stuff. And I'm like, no, everything was orange and there were ashtrays everywhere. That's basically how I remember the 80s. And it's like the design thing was the same. Like, I mean, the fonts back then, a lot of the stuff from the early web that people get super excited about, like, as you said, like the GeoCities and these Neopets and these kind of things, was based on possibilities, like what it allowed you to do. I love that history of the web article series that is happening here on that website. And it talked about like in 1995 when it started changing and people had like table layouts out of a sudden. And I think the biggest thing was back then, movie websites. That was the big thing where designers can actually just play, because the website was there to promote the movie that's in the cinema right now, and 3 months later nobody needed that anymore, so you can go wild as you want to be. And that's where Flash then basically shown later on as well, where it became the big thing to sort out. But it's interesting to see how much effort went into making these things possible. I remember like my whole career at the beginning was knowing how Internet Explorer 4 and 5 renders things, and like how to make a menu like that up there that actually scales. And but basically it's like, I mean, the scaling back then was 800 by 600, 640, or 1024, and that was like a few people had 1024. And it's just like interesting to see how many people push the envelope just by doing completely wild things as well. What I find it always fascinating is how many times we try to make the web be like print. And oftentimes that's where we then needed multicolor layouts and these kind of things. And I never understood that we didn't embrace it as a new medium and basically said like newspapers should look like newspapers on the web. It felt like really bizarre that this was always a push for people. Like, now we can finally have the perfect fonts. And you're like, well, I mean, I like that basically people can have another font displaying when they need it. Like, I'm not in control of the web. Now, PenPod allows you to actually do designs and developers together in like collaboration. Do you have things like when somebody picks like Comic Sans to have an alert saying like, do you really want to do this? Or do you limit in any way what's going on there? Or do you flag up accessibility issues while people are editing things?
And in the end, what you can do at PenPod is to like collaborate in many different ways. And at time of developing the tool itself, I mean, we allow you to put comments and that kind of stuff. And regarding accessibility steps, like we have some kind of checks. We also, there is like a great plugin regarding accessibility, but there is no kind of like steps that you have to follow to make something look nice or standardized, because at the end, like, you can do whatever you want. So I think that this, like, the feeling of having something that looks bad shouldn't stop creativity. So like, how do you put that? Like, no, don't use Comic Sans. I mean, why not? Well, Comic Sans is a really accessible font for a lot of stuff. So yeah, I think it depends on so many things. So yeah, I wouldn't put like any kind of limit on that sense. The other day, you have mentioned before, if I remember correctly, brutalism. The other day we had some kind of internal talk, because one of the developers was asking actually, like, how is this style or design called? And we were like, yeah, this is brutalism. And some designers were like, it's horrible. Like, a lot of websites look like that. And I was like, I thought it was nice. I kind of like it. Why is it that bad? What am I missing? So I don't know. It's like, it depends a lot on the person. But yeah, it was really funny that you mentioned it, because there's like a lot of discussion on that.
It's a really sort of hot topic, I suppose. I mean, Chris, if you wouldn't mind, bring up the Gumroad homepage, gumroad.com, because that's a really good example of what we're talking about, the neo-brutalism. Gumroad. Gumroad.com, yeah. Because they've got, if you sort of see how theirs is, it's there, like, I think from memory, it's like pink and yellow, and it's the big sort of, there you go, pink and yellow. There's a visual memory. But there's a really good example of it, where somebody said to me once, the whole point of sort of neo-brutalism or brutalism is like pure function over form. So like, it's purely about how you use it and not about how it looks. And for me, that's really hard to get my head around, because to me, they are very much the same, two sides of the same coin. So I guess I know what you're saying there about, it's really hard to tell somebody that this style is not nice, because you either love it or you hate it. There's no in between. But it's definitely been the big trend for the last few years, I think, that we've seen on the web, for sure.
I think the irony of it is that basically it only looks good because of the rendering of browsers these days. Like, if that would render like a 1995 browser, it would be all like pixely and terrible, and like it would be it would not be as smooth. This is the thing where people, I mean, when people always show like pixel art and they say like, oh, it's great, you sell the pixels. And I remember doing computer games in the 90s, and I'm like, we did everything so the pixels wouldn't show. We put colors next to each other that would blend into each other, so anti-aliasing, so you wouldn't see single pixels. But like, and then nowadays it's like, oh, that's what they looked like. And I'm like, no, it was CRT monitors back then, or TV sets. So every single pixel was just a blur. And it's not like that, the harsh round things that you can see here. It's quite interesting to see.
Yeah.
And
so it's like, as technology evolves, it allows us to make uglier designs.
Yeah, and go back to like old designs and pretend that they were like back then. And this reminds me of like school books from the 70s that I had, like with like really bad comics teaching you French and English kind of thing. So it's not a good connotation at all. There is a search engine that I found interesting as well, which is called Weeby. And it just basically indexed pages, I think, from archive.org, which are like older than like 1997 or something like that. So we get like all these websites where people build their own personal websites and just did random stuff on the web rather than like commercial websites. And I love that, because I think we should not hold back on this kind of stuff. Like, just if you want to publish random stuff on the web, do it. The web is still there because of that. And it's just beautiful that these things are somehow archived, because Google cache was deleted, and it would not be possible to find these things. And it's great that they're still around. And it was most random stuff. And I found it great that there's a search engine for that. I mean, you could probably use like Google before 1995 or something like that in the search bar as well. But it's really interesting to see. Ooh, free clip art. Excellent.
Don't you love that though? The way that it's like, I almost think of it a bit like where you see so many like YouTubers now, and they're these big sort of, they've got these big studios and they've got sponsors and they're like a real company, let's put it like that. But so many of them started doing like, I don't know, skits or things on Vine or like little sketches. And they had this like real rough kind of charm, you know, lo-fi, not very good equipment, no lighting, no real script. And it feels like the web has done that. It's always trying to show the professional side of things and the like really well-formed, look at this beautiful website I made with this framework, rather than just something somebody's made for fun that is experimental and is very much them. And there's no framework on top of it. It's just, it's like their embodiment of like who they are, you know? So yeah, it's cool to see these things.
Yeah, and it's fun that it basically, I mean, there's the irony that the web doesn't forget anything, but it's great that it doesn't forget some things that people just put there. Like, I mean, I found the other day my first website that I built, and it was basically explaining HTML to other people. This is what I started with, like, and then some Star Trek things and some 8-bit computing things. But it's interesting that these bits are still around. When it comes to design, I mean, this cracked me up as well. Design is my passion. When somebody just pointed out, this is basically the liquid glass thing. And it's so easy to take the mickey out of it, but at the same time, I mean, I have a friend of mine who works on accessibility in Apple, and he said, like, I know you all point out that this is not accessible at all, but believe me, probably somebody in a company like Apple had that conversation for the last 7 months, and it still got out. But I'm just like, this is embarrassing. I'm sorry. There's just this to me looks like somebody didn't test the thing before it went live.
What are your thoughts on it, Elena? Do you like it as a personal thing? When you saw it, did you go nice, or what was your reaction?
Yeah, I was like kind of surprised because I've always thought that Apple is a company that I know puts a lot of effort on having a good accessibility products, and yeah, I don't know, but I think that these days, maybe I know because of the rise of other technologies, and some people are maybe putting less effort on this kind of details, as you have to like ship a lot of new things, but also like somehow evolve and ship make newer versions of what you have and differentiate somehow, so people can look at you because you have done something different. That those kind of things get missed because of the urge of delivering. This is what I think, but like I have no idea about what can be happening underneath or whatever. But yeah, to me, I mean, not only like the blurry, glassy effect, which, well, I mean, like, nice try. I think that we have to try to innovate sometime. Like, this is like the only way of coming with new things. I mean, if we don't try different things, we are never like going to, I don't know, we are limiting ourselves. But at the same time, it's like, this is like, color contrast is a very basic accessibility thing. So it's like sometimes it's easy to miss. It's easier to miss like the basic stuff than the super complex stuff. So I'm pretty sure that this has like some, I don't know, it's accessible by voice control or whatever. But if you look at it, it's not that good. So yeah, I think that they just like missed the basic stuff.
And it's not even people who are visually impaired. It's just old people or people who look at their phone in the sun. Like, that's enough for that. Like, I mean, it seems to me there is no automated test about color contrast in this case. I mean, I don't mind the transparency of it. I think performance-wise, it must be a nightmare as well when everything is like half transparent rather than just like overlaying and not re-rendering that part of the screen. But yeah, like having that color on top of that feels like just an oversight to me. And I mean, I totally understand the liquid glass thing. It's like we have to keep innovating. We have to keep being the company that does things differently. Then again, Windows had Aqua that had just the sidebars of the windows looking like that. But it feels like it's forced change to a degree. And I wonder if it's to distract from the fact that the intelligence AI stuff didn't work out the way they wanted to. Might be, you know. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that toot about it, where somebody said like transparency should be used transparently.
But it looks so nice. That's the problem, isn't it? Is like, you know, we probably all remember the days of when you had to like fake transparency, doing sort of GIFs in the corner to try and make something look like it had rounded corners or whatever. And so it is nice. It's like, especially if you're doing anything like video, it's a great way to layer things up. It's like transparency is such a useful thing, but you definitely can forget about, you know, how much kind of how taxing it is when you've got loads and loads of layers and maybe they're animating and they're transparent, etc. Yeah.
It kind of fired off the old confusion, though, like when people say like, oh, you got to make it pretty and then it's not accessible. So that's the thing where a lot of times when there's innovation and people say like, yeah, we're going to make it accessible later. And you're like, oh, no. And I love this article about it, where basically they said like that designers have no excuse anymore, that you can make things pretty, animated and accessible just by doing the right thing. You know, like the accessibility of the sign-up experience on GitHub was the example that she showed. And it's just like by testing if animations can be seen or want to be seen before you do them, by testing if the font size is big enough and doesn't break apart if you resize it 3 times, you're already 90% of the way there. And it just fascinates me that people are still thinking like, oh, I got to make it pretty first, and then I think about accessibility as an afterthought, because that will never give you accessible results.
Yeah, totally. Actually, to me, like those transparency elements were like elements that were meant to be like kind of second-class situations, like somehow something that is only meant for styling purposes, or for something that where you don't have to look at directly, just that are around and that are not that important at that moment. So this change like kind of means that they are like bringing this to the first layer, which is I don't know, kind of contradictory to me. But yeah, at the same time, for example, there's and this is a request that we've been having at Pempot for a long time, which is being able to add this CSS property, the background filter, to be able like to make it a bit blurry and so on, which is something that we don't currently support in the current render. And it's been like requested a lot. A lot of people want this feature. So what I don't know, like understand from this request is that people want to kind of use this blurry transparently thing. So I don't know why, but
I guess for modals and pop-ups, that's where basically people wanted mostly to blur the background. I mean, SVG had that functionality for decades, and you could use that instead as well. But it feels like whatever you do, it's going to be a rendering issue. Some of Almu in the comments also said that the whole thing is a battery drainer, and yeah, to a degree it is. Every time you do drop shadow and transparency, I wonder what the new iOS version does about that. It would be interesting to see if there's a feature that actually makes sure that it's rendered somewhere else. I think Internet Explorer 9 was the first one to actually cache CSS gradients, for example, and all the others were slowing it down. So might be something like that as well, to basically make sure that it actually works out. Yeah, I remember having really bad laptops and like Linux machines and turned off transparency on everything just because it was too slow to actually move windows around. Now we have it on a mobile phone. Like that's even weirder. I was on the beach last week here on the Baltic Sea in Germany, and as I'm ginger, I actually stay in a little tent on the beach, so that basically I don't burn. And my phone turned off because it actually said it went too hot because in there. That never happened to me before.
Yes.
I didn't know that was a feature of Android.
It has happened to me a lot of times, not only with my phone, but also with tablets and other devices. So yeah.
So image accessibility is another interesting article that I found fascinating in terms of like how many things you can do wrong when you're actually using an image without an alt description, without pre-rendering, without like dimensions and all the bits and bobs. It's very easy for people to remember. It's that the placeholder and stuff is something interesting there, and it's a few takeaways just to make images accessible. And it's so easy to do it right, but we most of the time don't do it. I mean, the amount of times I see social media posts without alternative text, but that's because on like every platform, I know it's like a 3-click exercise to put alternative text on an image.
I wonder if there's a way they could actually make it so that you get rewarded if you do it. I know there's almost no benefit to the actual social media companies to doing this, right? But you would think it would just be a really good like upgrade where if they could say, okay, it's in the algorithm that like images that have got alt tags are more favorable to the algorithm, more likely to get exposure and kind of actually be seen by people. To me, that would be like a really good way of just saying it's now one factor, a bit like with SEO, loads of different factors. But it'd be a really good way of saying, we're just going to encourage you to do this, and we're not going to make it an obvious thing or force you. We're just going to say you're going to do better if you like. More people are going to see what you post if you do it. I don't know. I don't run the world. I wish I did, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, it is beneficial to the providers as well because it would allow them to index images better rather than having to run them through an AI bot to know what's on the image.
Yeah, true.
You know, but then again, alternative text should not describe the image, but should actually give the mood of the image as well. So that would be an extra feature as well that comes in for properly written alternative text.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that. If with AI, it's going to be like in the upcoming. I was going to see years, but maybe in the upcoming months. Like, let's say that maybe developers don't put that much effort on putting alternative text because they think that there's gonna be an AI that in the browser or in the application they use, people use it, that is going to like just do that function. Or on the other side, why don't they? I don't know, like if they are not used to do that, why don't use like these tools or whatever to check if they are if they are missing alternative text, or if these descriptions are well enough. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna happen like one thing or the other, basically.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the problem when you have like content management systems saying like add a description. Like I think a description is a different thing from a caption, from an alternative text, from a title. I remember title attributes have always been abused for like showing extra information when you hover over things rather than just like being a title that gives more information when it's just an icon or something like that. But it was never read out by screen readers properly, so it was not it's a messy thing. And the amount of times I had customers in the early days of the web that actually said like, how can I style the title attribute? Like, how can I actually? So people wrote like JavaScript functions that would create an after element with CSS based on the title attribute. So you could do that in CSS only as well, but it was all not accessible and it was all really bizarre to actually do that. But alternative text can even be styled because when the image can't be loaded, you can actually show it differently than just like a broken image and just a text showing. So that was an interesting thing I found out the other day as well. Keyboard accessibility is another thing that I found very fascinating. This article about like what can you do to actually make a website properly keyboard accessible, and it's so many people need this, and it's so easy to do right, and so easy to not put to just put an outline none on hover, and then you wonder why people can't navigate your website. But I can encourage anyone to look at people that are dependent on a keyboard, what they actually use the keyboard, how they use the keyboard to navigate. It's not tabbing from one area to another. There's lots of other things in there, and it's interesting to think about these different idioms that we do. I mean, it was very easy when smartphones came out, and out of a sudden everybody was like, "Oh, I gotta support touch now." Because we had a cool phone, but with a keyboard, people never thought of it because that's like 1970s technology. We don't want to do that. But it was interesting that like by making it easier to navigate that way, you probably make it easier to navigate for everybody else as well.
There's something about, Chris, I remember you saying about earlier on, you said, why do we try to make the web like newspapers and try and make them, kind of, it's almost like, we have this idea of if you're in the West, you read left to right, things like this. So we're putting our kind of justifying things to the left. In some ways, when you make something keyboard accessible, it's making you think about how that is consumed in. It's very hard to describe this, like in a logical order. Something very simple like tab index we saw the other day. was on a Google page, and you could not actually get to this menu that was covering the present button on Google Slides. So it meant that our speaker, who was using assistive technology, could not actually start their own presentation. They had to say to somebody else, can you put it on your screen? And it made you think, well, what they haven't done there is, like, if you're making a newspaper with the hierarchy of your text, you're saying read it in this order, like from the top down into this subheader, down into the body. And just by doing something really simple like tab index, you're actually saying, and the tab order, you're saying, I want you to consume it in this order. I want you to go through the page. And so we're actually, like, it's not just about accommodating people that are using assistive technology. It's for ourselves thinking, how is this supposed to be consumed? It's not just a load of elements thrown together from top to bottom on a page. We want people to consume it. So yeah, it's definitely something, Chris, after we saw that this week, it's made me think a lot about, actually, it's not just an accessible layer that you do at the end. It's about how your page is going to be consumed.
Yeah, I think that I have never thought about tabbing index this way, but I think that, like, yeah, it's really smart. Like, when you put accessibility first, it's not only about making things accessible, but like designing them in a specific way that makes sense, like, as a whole. Yeah, I agree with that.
And oftentimes people just think too complex. They put like a tab index attributes on their HTML rather than just keeping the order in the DOM sensible. Like, I mean, just put your content up first and then use CSS to shift the stuff around. Like, it's totally fine to do that. Like, the menu with the 5,000 things should not be the first thing I tap into. That's where skip links come in as well, which is very important feature that's very simple to do. And it's just fascinating how many people don't think about that. But yeah, it's interesting that every time we use something, it becomes tricky. I love this as well. Like, there's a responsive image linter idea. Like, responsive images are a very, very important bit. Of course, you don't want to load the large pictures. You want to load the simple ones. And this one is like, how many steps? I don't know. Lots and lots of steps that basically says, like, this is what you do wrong about a responsive image. And I find that oftentimes content management systems or like image editors like ImageX or these kind of things or Cloudflare would generate a lot of this code for you, and you make a lot of mistakes doing that. And this is a very, very detailed article about this, and I found that fascinating because I actually hoped that the libraries would do that for me, or WordPress or something would do it for me, but they make a lot of mistakes in that.
Yeah, that's right. The other day I was using Astro for a personal site of an event, and they sort of like provide you like some picture and image components that kind of like do that for you. And I was looking something for that. Like, I don't want to put like a lot of effort on doing it like on myself step by step. So I was like testing different tools, and I have to dig deeper on that. But it was like pretty nice. Like, you can like change, take a look at the website on different devices, and it handled like everything pretty nicely. So yeah.
I think the one I use with Next as well is very similar. You know, Next.js. They've brought in a lot of things like, you know, making lazy loading really simple. And I think now you even get a build error when you don't include an alt tag. That might be a warning. I'm not sure, but I've got a funny feeling you do.
Maybe you can configure it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's things like that I've definitely noticed an upgrade in the last version, really, with handling that, because I found in the past it was almost impossible to get it to actually look good when it was responsive and be confident. You know, it feels like now you've got a lot more control, and it's things like sizes, having that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which brings me to this one, which is your framework is showing, which is a bit of a rant about like what frameworks actually intercept with what you're doing, and it's interesting to that graceful degradation seems not to be a thing anymore. And it's interesting that there's a lot of old people ranting about this. And I mean, I kind of gave up on frameworks a long time ago because I don't have time for them anymore. I'm like, every week there's a new thing that actually is the right thing to do. I mean, React is now 10 years old or something or more, and I didn't even realize it's just that old. So
yeah.
But yeah, it
Yeah,
seems like
that's right.
we came full circle from like developer convenience to developer annoyance about being reliant on the framework and frameworks interfering with our look and feel, as you said as well with the Astro thing, because they're opinionated. It always
Mhm.
cracks me up when people say my framework is opinionated, and you're like, yeah, okay, it's just your opinion. That's like that shows, I guess. But and they get the better adoption. Like you have to be like this like a pushy person to say like this framework does it the way it does because it's better. And then
Mhm.
2 months later, oh, actually I was wrong. But now it's actually everywhere on the web, and I can't remove it anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, for my personal blog, which has like one article, so I mean, it's not like something important, but I've chosen like not to use any kind of framework. Like I use Eleventy for like the blogging system, but that's all. Then I use just a CSS file and not anything else, because like of that kind of feeling of having to choose among many things all the time. And yeah, so funny thing, I told you before that I was like working like almost 5 years as a backend development developer, and it was like, what's gonna happen when I don't know, want to jump again into front end stuff and so on? And it's like there's something new. So I mean, a lot of things happened during those 5 years that are not that important anymore. So you can just like catch up, and it's totally fine. You're not missing anything.
More people need to hear that.
Yeah.
I love the addendum that he has there. Like this post criticizes React and Next.js frameworks. Cultists with a weak disposition may struggle to disassociate themselves and feel personally attacked. Take a deep breath. Remember that React is a tool and not a lifestyle choice. You'll be okay.
Oh, I
Yeah,
feel
chill
personally
out.
attacked. I like the bit at the end though. He definitely doesn't hold back. He says Next.js is a rotten, incompetent framework with no signs of improvement. I was like, wow, he is not holding back. Yeah, safe to say he doesn't like it. But you know, I think I'm a Next fanboy. Less so nowadays, but yeah, I am a bit of a Next fanboy. But at the same time, he's not wrong. He's not wrong with anything he's saying. You know, he makes good arguments, and there's definitely a long way for them to go yet to actually kind of settle down. It feels like we're at still a point where frameworks are throwing everything up in the air and throwing stuff at us as users. And maybe 5 years time, we'll know what's actually stuck around, and hopefully it'll be a little bit easier to work with on all fronts, because things are still quite messy.
Well, there is the tricky bit, though. I mean, I talked to a few people about this, and they said, like, we don't want to use framework XYZ, but we have to because we can't hire any developers that don't use it. Like when people come out of a boot camp, or they basically come out of somewhere to basically jumpstart being a developer, they start with React Native and they start with React. And basically to hire engineers that actually know the basics and know how to actually build things from scratch is getting harder and harder. And it feels weird that we're actually becoming dependent on the thing that we don't want to support, even when it comes to hiring.
It happens the same like from the other side. Like there are a lot of companies that are focused on hiring people that knows a lot about a certain framework for any reason, and both in the front end side, but also in the back end side, like knowing a lot about a specific technology, like let's say Node.js versus any kind of Python thingy. So yeah, I think the problem is on both sides. So especially people like new to the industry is like, okay, I know maybe that I don't need to, or that I don't have to get stuck at one framework. I have to get the general knowledge. But at the same time, is I know that some companies want to hire just like a very specific profile. So yeah, it's like hard to measure for newcomers, I would say.
And also, if you look at the salaries, when you look for like a React Native developer compared to a front-end developer, React Native developers probably get higher salaries because a lot of American companies are actually listing them as a necessity. If you get that money later on is another question, but like it's an interesting concept to think about in this case. We talked about that earlier a bit, like when we just had this AI and accessibility day, and one of the biggest things that I learned is that the Ray-Ban glasses, that the smart glasses that you can have for your mobile phone, is not only for horrible people, but also a lot of people with vision impairment are using them. Like there were two speakers that basically were impaired and couldn't see, and they both were using Ray-Ban glasses because it means they don't have to take their phone out of their pocket. I did not know that. It was completely shocking me to see that. It's a very, very cool thing that that it enables people with a disability to just see the world and not like be like a person that has to hold up their phone to scan a menu to read it or something like that. And the Ray-Ban glasses can actually do that for you. And this is basically Leonie Watson here explaining how she's using it as a non-sighted person and what apps she connects with it and all the bits and bobs and what she's using it for. And it's really, really beautiful that this is a thing, because I mean, I couldn't be bothered with smart glasses to a degree. I find them weird. But yeah, this case, it really makes sense that somebody with a disability can use coolest, newest technology, and it empowers them.
Yeah. Not related to like images and so on, but my brother, he has Down syndrome. And for example, he's using a lot of AI stuff recently as a user. And I observe him a lot because, for instance, for him, it's been always so hard to interact with voice control because like his speech has like a lot of errors. He has like his own language somehow. But on the other side, well, he's really good at video games, like with the Wii console, by the way. So in terms of accessibility, the Wii is so good, especially with tennis. Like, I mean, anyone can win him. But for text and chat application, it's been like really helpful because even he has like some grammar mistakes. It's allowing him to interact with a lot of stuff like websites and so on. That he couldn't before, and he's kind of learning how to write other things. So yeah, it's like I know it's not necessary like this kind of tools for everybody, but I was like so surprised how he's using it a lot, and I haven't like installed anything on his phone at all. Like he's doing it by himself. So yeah, it also was kind of surprising. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Wii was a great thing back then. I mean, my parents would never touch a computer. They would scratch the credit cards because they don't trust computers. And for the Wii, for the first time, like, how do I play tennis? And I'm like, well, you move it like a tennis rack. And then like, oh, okay, cool. So then they actually started playing with that. A lot of like homes for the elderly bought Wii's back then. So at least people have a bit of movement. And when you were a proper geek and you realized you can do the whole movement or you can just move it really fast, really quickly.
Yeah, like very like this.
That was the other bit that was interesting about it. I mean, I haven't looked at the new Wii thing that just came out. Like it was sold out within like seconds, and the Switch. I found it an interesting thing, but that was really groundbreaking back then. And I remember when the PlayStation also had a thing that looked like a scepter that didn't do the same thing, but it's really cool that you give something bigger and then computers become more accessible to people because of that. I found this really bizarre as well, that Google can actually generate a fake AI podcast of your search results. And I'm like, okay, we know the technology behind it is that notebook LLM thing that they're using. That's fine. It's great that they have it. But why would I want that? Is it an accessibility thing, or is it just like showing off that we can? I mean, a search result to me is like, it's bad enough that I just get the AI summary now, but why would I want to listen to a search result after I put it in there? Unless I'm on a train with my headphones in or something like that. But then I would want to do something with a search result normally and not just get the information, right?
I don't know. I think because, and I actually like people that are not used to like screen readers and so on, like, I mean, the audio is slower than what you read. So I don't know why I would do that. It's like because you want to do something else at the same time that you're listening to the answer. I mean, if it's something that is longer, like, I don't know, a Wikipedia page or something like that, and you want to listen it in the background, or like a summary of a topic, which is a bit longer, maybe I can understand it. But it's like for a very short and a specific answer, I don't really get it. But I don't know, maybe for someone it's useful.
It does feel a bit like, though, the the AI summaries, like they were sort of pushed on us all. And I mean, I did one yesterday. Oh no, it was actually an AI summary that was in a Gmail thread, and I thought, oh, that's pretty good. And then I noticed it was only 3 bullet points. It was quite a long thread, and I noticed the last bullet point was the exact opposite of what had actually happened. Somebody saying like, can you send me this file? And in the summary, it's like they have already sent the file, and I was like, they haven't. So I think for me, it's like it's a bit of a I don't know, it's pushed on us, and it's not actually a great example of what they can do, really, because it's like, well, you can make a lot of mistakes. I'm hoping this is just an accessibility feature that's like useful for a small number of features of users, because it's not you have to manually enable it, so it's not going to be pushed on every user, which is good. But like you said, that was my first thought, Elena. I could just read it and it would be much quicker. So if you're not able to read it in the normal way, then this could be a good feature, but I don't see how it is for anyone else,
It's interesting how it's inverse, isn't it? I saw another tool yesterday that allows you to dictate, and it also it runs it through an LLM while you dictate, and actually when you say and doesn't actually show these things immediately, and it basically boasted that you can actually be like 10 times faster speaking than writing, which I guess if it's handwriting, definitely, if it's keyboard also, but listening seems to be much slower than actually reading. Because with reading you can skim, with listening you can't, because you either have to speed it up, or you can't just skip bits, basically, because you don't know what's coming next, because it's synchronous. So it's interesting that there's this inverse logic of like being faster speaking than reading, but being slower hearing than reading.
Yeah, that's right.
Now we can get started on like going into the topics that we're going to cover later on. I love that there's a 10-minute thing about performance debugging and DevTools from Google I/O. Now, I worked on the performance tools in the browser, and I love that they're in there, but holy hell, they're actually complex by now, aren't they? Like, you really, I mean, a 10-minute intro is about the new stuff that's going on there, but it seems to me like to really, really use the performance tools to find out where the problems in your application is, you need to take a longer course just to understand the dev tools, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. And this is one of the things that changes a bit. I mean, where you really have to like put an eye on it, because and different browsers have like similar but different features sometimes. So like you have to kind of like choose the right tools for that. You have to know. I think that the hardest thing is that in the middle of all of the things to find out what it really matters. And it's not always like when you're developing, and it depends, right? Like when you're developing a static or not very expensive website versus developing an application, like when you want to check performance, you have to kind of know where you have to look at. So like what kind of functions, what is your flow? Why sometimes a function takes longer than another is because you the first time, I don't know, like nothing was cached. So the next time is faster just because it already has the information. Or why at some point is it slower? Is it because it's doing something specific, like, or because you have interacted with that? Because you can also know that. You can know if a trigger, like a point click or whatever, has like triggered the function. So you have to I don't know, investigate a lot on that, and sometimes it might not be that trivial. And you also have to know somehow how to like use your code to check performance. So it's not just about opening the browser and check, or generate a flame graph and dive into it. But also like, I want to put a mark on here because I've seen that this function is expensive. So I'm going to check how long it takes and whatever. So yeah, to me, like there's a lot of things that you have to know about that. And it's kind of intuitive sometimes, but at the same time, I think it's kind of hard.
I mean, also because these tools were basically built to debug the DOM and debug the browser, and also the CSS and all the bits that basically going on in the browser itself. And then, of course, we use libraries to actually work around these things. And that was another interesting little article here about a video about like 3 different ways JavaScript frameworks render the DOM, actually, how they actually do the DOM stuff that you're supposed to do, not to do by hand because it's slow. And then, of course, as a developer of the developer tools in the browser, I was just like, okay, I can't help you. You have to build your own because you're actually doing the virtual DOM stuff. I mean, I can help you with the final rendering of it, but most of the time when you then see the bugs in the or the expensive functions, you can't even go back to the function that caused it because it's 5 levels above.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and many frameworks like release their own tools that you can, their own extensions that you can integrate in the browser, not only for like performance checks, but also for, like, I know, in the case of React, if you are using some kind of state manager, like you can also debug it. And some years ago, if I remember correctly, they introduced it like some improvements on debugging WebAssembly functions and stuff. So at the beginning, there was like just a bunch of letters and generated things out there, and like they have been evolving that on putting like the right name to the function so you can know what are you looking at. So yeah, I think it's something that evolves a lot, and maybe at some point you find it terrible, but people are working on that, and at some point it's not that terrible. So yeah, it's something that you have to be a bit up to date, maybe.
Yeah, I remember source maps tried to be the solution there, but then there was no standard for them, and everybody did them differently. So that was another weird problem there. Well, I guess this is the end of the WeAreDevelopers Live for today. We're going to switch over and do the more detailed conversation with you. But first of all, thank you for being on the show today. Any last words you have for people before we go into the Coffee with Developer recording? Anything you want people to play with? Anything you want people to stop doing?
No, yes, thank you for inviting me. It was like really fun. It's also fun like to be more up to date into frontend and browser stuff. So I've missed that a lot. So yeah, I'm really happy for being here. Yeah, that's all.
Then what's your word of the week? Like your message of the week?
I'd say go and check out Penpot. Actually, I'm also saying that because we've got the Coffee with Developers coming up next, and we're going to get to have a little look at it. But yeah, there's some exciting stuff happening there. So I think it's really nice to see someone who's not Adobe XD and is not Figma doing something that's kind of designed to be the place where designers and developers meet. So it's a very long-winded way of saying go and check out Penpot, but yeah, it works.
Okay, cool. So thanks for watching, and we're going to stay here. So probably you can look at the feed as well if you wanted to, but we're going to change the branding now because we're going to start editing this. So this was WeAreDevelopers Live for today, and stick around to see more of Elena in a second.